Hello and welcome to the Father and Son Formula One podcast. As I always say, I'm the father, Graham Miller, and here's my son.
Hello.
Toby. And today, although it seems like a lifetime ago, we had a bit of a summer break on the podcast, I have to say.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be mainly discussing the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa.
And also a lot of stuff has happened in the summer break.
Oh yeah, like politics and everything else.
Driver changes.
But first of all, I missed a bizarre trivia statistic from the Hungarian Grand Prix.
Yes.
Oscar Piastri is now in a unique group of two Formula One drivers. What links Oscar Piastri and Luigi Fagioli?
They were not born the 19th century.
20th century.
20th century, 1900s.
They're the only two race winners
who were not born in the
20th century.
The year starting 19.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fagioli
I only knew that because I knew Fagioli was like 1899 or something.
1898.
So he actually is older than he needed to be.
He only won in like 52 or 53?
Yeah, really early on.
But Piastri, also rather less excitingly, is the first ever 21st century born race winner.
Yes. 2001. Same.
Does that make him older or younger than you?
Well, we'd be in the same year at school because he was March and I was July.
So he's older than you?
By several months. It's
and
when we get Antonelli into a Mercedes, I'm really stuffed because
he's like winning Formula One races.
Formula One race.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, that was the exciting.
I'll get down the karting track then.
Yeah, that was the exciting Hungary stat that I forgot, which is quite a cool one actually.
That's a pretty good one, yeah.
Belgium
2024.
That was a weird. Actually, the whole weekend was a bit odd, really. I mean, we knew that Max Verstappen would be taking engine penalties.
Yep.
And actually, I was surprised that he didn't do the kind of classic. Was Tsunoda on the 60-place grid drop?
Yeah.
I thought Max would do the same.
Change everything all at once.
Yeah, because I've seen a chart that Max is actually... Verstappen has actually maxed out everything.
Max has maxed, yeah, all of his components.
I think he's on his 6th ICE. But everything else he's had all of them. So either they're going to have to turn the power down a little bit and hope they don't knacker them, or he's going to have to take more penalties. And I suppose the statisticians at Red Bull will be working out what will be most detrimental overall.
Yeah, I think he's always liked Spa. So I think the last 3 races in a row, last 3 Spas in a row, Belgian Grand Prix, he's taken penalties there because they know, like he won from 14th on the grid once, so they were like, oh, we might as well.
Yeah.
It's about halfway through the season, it's a good time to change components.
Yeah, it's a big sweeping circuit, it's easy to overtake.
He's got a pretty good chance of winning, but not this time.
Spoiler alert.
Yes.
Yeah. We're looking at the free practice times, yeah. Was Williams up in the top 3?
Yeah, Albon. Looks pretty... I think that's dry times. Then Norris, Piastri, Verstappen in FP2.
Wasn't it one of those races where we had rain overnight and it scrubbed out all the...
Yeah, look at practice 3. It was 2 minutes all of a sudden.
Yeah, I thought so. And then the qualifying was basically a reset track.
It was kind of 10 seconds slower than FP1. So... It was 144s and that was 154s. I think it was drying. The sort of track Button would have done very well on.
Yeah, it kind of... And the other weird thing was that, to be very technical, because I heard this on the commentary, Max Verstappen set the fastest time in Q3 and Charles Leclerc got pole.
Yes, because Verstappen took a 10-place grid drop to 11th.
Yeah.
Although I am wondering, looking at this, he was 8 tenths ahead of Leclerc. Which is kind of huge.
It's a bit worrying, isn't it?
You think. Also, you might think, I got pole by so much, but it doesn't matter because I'm going to go back a set number of places. Do you know why we think they should have, like, time penalties like they used to do when it was old qualifying?
But what do you do, 10th of a second?
Yeah, I don't know. Because if he got, like, a 1 second penalty, he would be only in 8th. 7th? He'd be ahead of Sainz still.
But it's so hard to do it because, like...
Oh, actually, just ahead of Russell still.
Some tracks are like... Well, I think Spa's one of the longest, isn't it? Or is it the longest?
It's the longest. It's so long if they tried to introduce it as a track now, it would not pass the regulations.
So
It's like the opposite of Monaco.
if you had like a tenth of a second, at Monaco per place drop, it would be massively different to somewhere.
Austria.
Yeah. I think it would. No.
Yeah, that's probably why they stopped doing it, actually.
And yeah, Sonoda was on a 60 place.
If we have a look at the starting grid. Yeah, so Sonoda, I think at a certain point they stopped counting and they just said back of the grid.
Yeah.
And also Joe got a penalty for impeding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was quite surprised actually on a drying track. I think we got all the top 8 in the top 8, didn't we?
I mean, yeah. So Red Bull, Ferrari, Perez did a good job actually to come third.
Which then got promoted to second.
Yeah, that's probably the best qualifying he's had in a long time.
Yeah, front row definitely. I mean,
and then Mercedes, McLaren, Mercedes, Ferrari. Sainz was quite far off Leclerc this race. I think that's an interesting point.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this yesterday. We're looking at those head-to-head stats. And Sainz and Leclerc are quite evenly balanced with a slight nudge in favour of Leclerc.
Yeah.
But it's not, it's kind of like cigarette paper between the two, really.
Yeah, it's not like Verstappen versus Perez, which is pretty decisive.
It's like bus-sized gaps.
Yeah. But you're right, it is Red Bull, Ferrari, Red Bull, Mercedes, McLaren, Mercedes, Ferrari.
Because normally when I watch a qualifying, there's a drying track or there's a threat of rain.
Someone will bin it, or
you can pretty much guarantee one of the top 8, which is we're kind of getting into a Formula 1, Formula 1.5 kind of situation here, aren't we?
Yeah, well, we've got 4 now, which is nice.
Yeah, we've got like Ferrari, Red Bull, Mercedes.
It does mean that the back midfield is a bit worse because they can, like in this situation, Alonso came 9th and Ocon 10th in qualifying. That's only 2 points in 1 point.
Yeah.
Like previously, at least they could get 6th or even they could get 8th or 7th if someone retired.
Yeah.
And even, sneak a podium, but now it just seems kind of impenetrable for the bottom.
They have been discussing opening out the points to maybe 12 or 15.
I think
because for that reason, because
yeah,
I mean, it kind of actually makes it interesting because if you look at the team charts, one really good race, like if 2 Hasses got into even the midpoints, like 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th.
They did do at some point.
Then they'll suddenly leapfrog 3 or 4 places up. It's really quite...
Yeah, I mean, they're on 27 points, and part of that's probably because of Austria, if I remember. I've got a spreadsheet because I'm a nerd. Where are they?
Hulk and...
Yeah, 6th and 8th.
Yeah.
That was actually
really that actually makes the midfield really interesting. I think Aston Martin are kind of carving their own lonely spot.
Yeah, pretty solidly P5. Oh, only 39 points ahead of RB, but 193 behind Mercedes.
But then you've got like RB on 34, Haas on 27, Alpine on 11, Williams on 4, and Stake on 0. They could easily, if they have one good race. And
I mean, if Stake won a race or got a 1-2, actually, if Stake got a 1-2, I know pigs would fly, but they'd actually go from last. They'd overtake RB up into 6th.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's kind of actually made it a bit more exciting.
But I think also Brundle said if points are supposed to be representative of how well you did in the race, then they should go back to like 20th, really. Which they do in some series. I think IndyCar does that. And
also, to an extent, they do in a hidden way. Because if 2 people are on the same points, they kind of count all their finishes, and the one with the lowest number of...
Yeah.
Overall finishes.
Well, how they do it is, whoever finishes the highest, whoever has more of a higher placed finish. Oh man, so basically, Zhou, Sargent and Bottas are all on 0 points.
Yeah.
Zhou finished 11th in Miami, that's a sprint I think, and 9th in one of the other sprints. I don't know if sprints count towards countback actually. And he finished 11th in Bahrain. Sargent finished 11th in Britain, but Bottas has only ever managed 12th in a sprint and 13th outside of it, so he's at the back of the field. Yeah. So in a way, it's kind of like a hidden point system. Yeah, but it also... I mean, Sargent could have come 11th in one race and DNF'd all the others and he'd still be ahead of Bottas. It doesn't actually represent it as it's not much. Quite a point. It's a bit... I think maybe down to 15th wouldn't be too bad. But I also quite like the point system that they've got at the moment. I think it works quite well. I think they should focus more on kind of equalising the playing field a bit so we don't get stuck in this kind of loop.
1.5 type.
I think at least wait until the new regs come out just to see
how they are. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember the old 10.
That used to be like 9 for a win.
Yeah, I'm not that old.
No, actually, no. You're actually really not. That was like the 50s.
Yeah. So the actual race itself.
Yes.
I mean, it was kind of the technical thing that was interesting about it for me.
Yeah.
Was that it was a new track in that they'd resurfaced it.
Mm.
And all the data gathering from 3 free practices was useless because they had rain on the Saturday. So in a sense, they'd scrubbed it. So it was a very tactical race.
Mm.
It was very much a who can get the undercut, when do you need to pit, how long will the tyres last.
Yeah. And it was a race where, if you look actually, apart from Russell and Hamilton, none of the top 8 finished next to their teammate. Because then it went Piastri, then Leclerc, then Verstappen, then Norris, then Ferrari, then Sainz in Ferrari, and then Perez.
Yeah, I mean, it has been commented that Perez managed to convert a front row start to an 8th place.
7th after the DQ.
Well, yeah, I think we get
8th on the road.
I'm going to talk about on the road places because Russell got, as I'm sure you've seen on the news, disqualified for being 1.5 kilos underweight.
Yeah, which is quite huge in Formula One. Normally, if it was like 10 or 15 grams, I'd have been like, damn, that's pretty harsh. But 1.5 is like a pretty noticeable improvement sporting wise, I'd have thought.
Yeah, but
anyway,
I don't think that was Perez's fault. Because I watched the whole race.
Yes.
Even though it was Spa and everybody was like, big sweeping corners, long straights, big braking zones, it was very difficult to pass.
Yeah.
To the extent where, on a different strategy, Verstappen was coming up behind Perez.
Yeah.
And they pitted him. Completely out of sequence. He had loads of life left on those. Yeah, Perez.
To get him out of the way.
And you kind of think, well, it's Perez with Verstappen behind him. Why can't he just
swap?
But I don't think they wanted to risk even half a lap of dirty air.
Yeah.
Close following.
I mean, Piastri said when he was leading the race, which he did briefly, he said clean air is king. Yeah. And then afterwards he was like, the dirty air was so bad, it was just impossible.
Oh, I read a really technical article this afternoon.
Yes.
Where Lewis Hamilton actually sat down with a journalist and said why he hates the new ground effect regulations.
Mm-hmm.
And they confirmed this by looking at all the really geeky data and the graphs and everything between him and Russell.
Yarp.
What Hamilton likes to do is what's called veeing off a corner.
Right.
So he'll go in fast,
mm-hmm.
he'll brake late, he'll turn in aggressively and then power out so that his graph looks like a V.
Yeah, I can see that.
What Russell does, the younger drivers tend to do, is go in, brake a bit earlier, roll off some of the speed and then turn in a fraction later and maybe miss the apex, but their graph will look more like a U.
So they're more like... Ooh.
Yeah.
And then they...
Toby's drawing B's and U's on the desk since this is a podcast.
Yeah, I'm just visualising it in my head. Yeah.
Yeah. And apparently when you do a V shape in these modern cars, their breakaway is very sudden.
Mm.
So what's happening is Hamilton was generating tiny, tiny slides because he went in hard, braked hard, threw the steering wheel round, and they were generating kind of almost micro sliding on the back as it suddenly broke away, and that was throwing loads of heat into the tyres.
Wearing them down very quickly.
But that also meant, apparently he can compensate for it in races, but that's why he said a while ago, which has obviously not turned out to be true, he didn't expect to out-qualify Russell all season.
Because his tyres would go off by the end of the lap.
Yeah, and there were some corners to Russell where he was losing 1/10 of a second in a corner.
Yeah.
Because the cars just don't like it. And I think Ricciardo suffered very heavily from this when he was at McLaren last year.
Yeah.
But McLaren apparently told Ricciardo, just change your driving style.
Mm.
Which, I mean, is kind of a running joke about late braking like Ricciardo.
Yeah, he has a very particular way of driving a car, and he really was very happy with the Red Bull when it was there.
But their approach then was to just ditch Ricciardo.
Yeah, and go for someone like Piastri, who's younger. Yeah, probably has more of that rounded off corner profile to it.
But apparently, what they did with Hamilton was Hamilton tried to kind of slowly change his style. Which, bearing in mind, he's 39. He's been driving F1 cars for nearly 20 years.
Yeah,
certainly open wheelers for 20 years.
Easily, yeah.
But also the modifications they brought kind of tried to bring it more in line with his style without upsetting the car.
Yeah.
And without upsetting Russell. So they said on this article, it's a really good example of how a driver and a team and a teammate can all work together rather than just saying, well, suck it up, Lewis.
Yeah.
Change your style.
Well, especially since he's leaving at the end of the year, it's actually quite kind of noble of Mercedes to think, well, we can still get wins with him. We can still...
Yeah, well, I mean, it's...
They could just say, well, we'll just keep developing the car for George because he'll be here next year.
Yeah.
But they're not, which is quite nice.
Quite nice of them. But also with Ricciardo last year.
I think it was the year before he was in McLaren.
Was it the year before, yeah.
So Piastri's, this is his second year, Piastri.
Yeah. It just made him awful because he was kind of overthinking every corner. He wasn't driving it naturally. He was trying to kind of force himself to do something he wasn't used to. And
yeah.
It just really didn't work.
But it looks like the Mercedes have got it figured out because not only is Hamilton competitive, but Russell's also competitive.
Yeah, I mean...
He was leading in Great Britain before he DNF'd. They finished 1 and 2 here on the road, obviously.
Yeah.
Like, Russell was there the whole race. They kind of might have cracked the code finally.
Yeah, and again, you see, that's what I was saying. That Russell's tyres were 15 laps older than Hamilton's.
Yeah.
And it's Lewis Hamilton, for God's sake. He's a fast driver.
Mm.
And they were told, don't wipe each other out, but go for it.
Mm.
And Lewis closed up, but he absolutely could not get past.
Yeah.
Even to the extent where if it'd been another 5 laps, he'd have dropped back into Piastri.
Mm.
When you actually look at the overall Prix stewards result, you had Russell, Hamilton and Piastri on the road.
1.1 seconds apart.
And then you had a big gap, and then you had Leclerc, who actually started on pole.
Well, Leclerc inherited a pole position because Verstappen got penalised, and then he inherited a podium because he qualified second, started on pole, finished the race 4th, ended up on the podium. It's like the luckiest day in Leclerc's career.
On the other hand, how did he go from 2nd to 4th?
Well,
I think he made mistakes, I think.
I think I think the Ferrari was just slow compared to compared to Piastri's McLaren anyway, and the Mercedes's.
But if you look at the next group of 3 on the road, they were all within just over a second.
Yeah, 1.3, which is about what it was from Russell to Piastri. There were distinct clusters.
But there again, you look at drivers like Verstappen and Norris on a track like Spa.
Yeah.
They actually went in assuming that Verstappen would be able to overtake people.
But he couldn't get past Leclerc in the end. And they were kind of just nose to tail for laps after laps, and it was like, nothing's actually happening.
I think there's something weird with the cars and the aero and the ground effect.
They might have developed the benefits of ground effect to the point where now the aero's suffering again, as it kind of did in the olden days, as it were.
Yeah.
Yeah, so pre-2022.
Do you want another completely random statistic about this race?
This one specifically?
Yeah, Belgian Grand Prix result.
What?
It's unique.
How?
The top 10, every one of them is a race winner. I can see you looking at the screen now.
Oh my god, that's awesome. Hang on. Well, doesn't matter if Russell is or isn't, but he is. Obviously Hamilton, he's won 1 or 2.
105.
Sorry, 105, yeah. Piastri, yeah. Just about. Leclerc, Verstappen, Norris, Sainz, Perez, Alonso, Ocon. Honestly, I think Ocon is really putting a lot of weight there for that statistic because...
Hey, listen, Esteban Ocon, is he a race winner?
Yeah.
There we go.
Actually, Alpine have got a team of race winners. I don't know how many teams can say that.
Where's Gasly won?
He won in Italy in 2020 in a AlphaTauri in a really weird race.
But yeah,
I mean,
it's the first time ever since 1950 that the top 10 finishers in a Formula 1 race have all been race winners.
This season's been proper weird.
Yes. I mean, that is an odd
That's
statistic.
awesome. I was like, really? I looked down and saw Ocon and Ricardo. I was like, oh, hold on a second.
Ricardo's won quite a few, like 8 or something.
Yeah, 10, I would
I
say.
wonder how many they've won between them.
About 150.
Oh yeah, no, more than that. Max is on 61.
Okay.
Lewis is on 105. So that's
I'm getting out the
166.
calculator. 105 plus. I'm going to go down. 1 for Piastri. I don't know how many Leclerc has won, actually. I'm going to just quickly check. You can talk about something else if you want.
Right, while Toby's got his calculator out,
Has anyone 6? Oh my god, I thought he'd won more than that.
I'm going to talk about unsubstantiated, completely, probably false rumours that I have heard. Was I right on 61 for Max?
Just checking. Yes.
There's a rumour that around the time of Miami, when Norris won his first race, that somebody complained to the FIA about Red Bull.
Yeah.
And that something in their car was illegal.
I think I've seen this article as well, actually.
And they... I mean, on the one hand, it's an unsubstantiated rumour and people have a lot of sour grapes over Red Bull being successful all the time.
Yeah.
And I kind of don't give it much weight. But on the other hand, you look at when Ferrari ran the overpowered engine, and the FIA didn't make a big announcement and didn't sanction Ferrari or anything. They just had a meeting behind closed doors and turned the power down. And
yeah. I think it's 224 wins, by the way, between the top 10.
That's awesome.
About half of those are Hamilton, to be honest. But yeah.
So on the one hand, I can think unsubstantiated rumour, people don't like Red Bull because they win all the time.
Yes.
But on the other hand, I kind of think it's the way the FIA operate. If Red Bull were doing something that was maybe not out and out illegal, not like running the car underweight or having a movable aero part or something, but something that was
on the limit and they decided against it, maybe.
I can really see they'd have a behind closed doors discussion and Red Bull would go, I'll tell you what, we'll just take that off and not tell anybody. Because they kind of tend to favour the big names, and Red Bull are now one of the big names.
Well, they have been for a long time as well.
We say a long time, the team is 20 years old.
Yeah,
you
right.
compare that to people like Ferrari and McLaren, who've been there forever. So, yeah, I'm not sure about that. And then...
yeah, I've seen... okay. Looks as though RBR might have been running a clever rear cross-brake inertia valve before they were obliged to remove it before Miami. This would explain Max's brake drama in Melbourne and his turn-in grief since China. And then there's, this sort of thing, which is like a little valve at the back of the car for the rear brakes.
Now, see, I worked on braking systems for classic cars.
Yeah.
And normally what you do is you put your foot on the pedal and the master cylinder pressurizes up because all hydraulic unless you're driving something from the 1920s.
Yeah.
And a long line, okay, this is a classic car, obviously in a modern car you'd have a split system. But simply a line goes from your master cylinder to the back of the car. Then you have a simple T-piece that splits it out so both your rear wheels brake at the same time. Now the picture Toby just showed me was, instead of having a simple T-piece that splits it out left and right, you have a mechanical valve T-piece. So as you're going around a corner with vast amounts of G in a Formula 1 car, I presume it shuts it off so that the inside wheel brakes more heavily?
Yeah, more inside brake pressure, less outside brake pressure, better turn-in.
So it kind of almost artificially throws it in.
Yes. And in the regs, there was a change that says any system or mechanism which can produce systematically or intentionally asymmetric braking torques for a given axle is forbidden.
Because I know way back in the late 80s, early 90s, when Williams were making ridiculously technical cars, they were working on systems. I mean, now you could do it with GPS and knowing where you are on the track, where literally it would brake the inside wheels more than the outside wheels, and almost it would turn itself into the corners by braking.
Yeah, adaptive suspension.
Yeah, I mean, you could kind of keep the suspension flat. You could.
And it was ludicrously fast as well, like unfairly.
Yeah, I mean, it was also probably quite dangerous as well, because something went wrong.
That was the time when they were shutting down ideas because they were too fast and the safety wasn't up to scratch.
Yeah.
Someone also mentioned, this is on the Reddit, it does also explain if Max's brake got stuck on. Maybe the valve got stuck and it just had maximum pressure on the right hand side. And then it's like, obviously if he's driving along, he's not pushing on the brakes, then it's okay. But if he brakes and he's like, well, what's going on? It's only braking on one side. And then it suddenly sticks on and explodes. And that also, if they've been obliged to remove it, if that was quite integral to how Verstappen drives, that would explain why he's fallen off a lot since Norris got that win in Miami.
Actually, he has been complaining about turn-in a lot, hasn't he?
Yeah, in Hungary especially, he was really annoyed at the turn-in.
Yeah.
So I think that could be... That's quite likely that that's what's happened, I think.
Yeah. Also, while we're on the Red Bull subject, they've confirmed that Perez won't be dropped.
Yes.
Which, there were rumours that because he's Mexican, and they've got the Mexican GP coming up, and F1 or Liberty Media, to be more accurate, are very keen on, as they call it, emerging markets and sponsorship. And Perez is not quite a pay driver, but he's connected to some very rich people.
I think he's a little bit too good. He was a little bit too good to be a pay driver. Like, he kind of acquitted himself quite well. But now it's getting into that territory.
Well, now it's getting into a particularly terrifying territory for Red Bull, because they are 42, 43 points behind McLaren in the constructors.
Ahead of, 42 points ahead of McLaren.
Which...
It's not much.
I mean, okay, let's be blunt.
A 1-2 is a 44 points, and if there's... That means that's a theoretical one race difference.
If there's a DNF.
If there's a double Red Bull, or out of the points, I mean, if Verstappen crashes and Perez has a Perez day...
Yeah.
A McLaren 1-2 is not actually unlikely as well, because both Piastri and Norris are on it recently.
The other way I like to look at it, we've got 10 races left in the season.
They could do 4.2 races, points per season, per race. Oh, my brain.
Yeah, McLaren need to outscore them by more than 4.2 per race.
And with Perez in the state that he's in, that's not out of the question. I mean, what happened in Belgium?
Well, in Belgium, they were both ahead of McLaren, both ahead of Verstappen. My brain.
No, Norris was behind Verstappen.
Oh yeah.
Which is Verstappen outscored him by 2 points, but then Piastri scored 18 and Perez only scored 6, so they outscored him by 10 points. Yeah.
Which is more than the 4 that they need.
Yeah. So if they have that again, which is not unlikely, they could do it.
But on the same subject, Max seems to be winning on the basis that he's got a team that's dedicated to him, whereas neither McLaren nor Mercedes seem to know who is challenging Verstappen.
Yeah.
And also by that kind of uncanny world champion's luck, where pretty much however badly the race goes for Verstappen, if he doesn't do anything else, he finishes ahead of Lando Norris.
Yeah, it somehow goes worse for Norris. Like, obviously in Austria, they crashed. Norris ended up DNFing, but Verstappen somehow snuck a 5th out of it and actually gained a load of points on it.
I think that's experience, which is weird to say for Verstappen, because he's used to being the young pup. But
he's like 9 years in F1, though.
Yeah.
I know he's still young because he started it when he was 17, but he made his actual debut in like 2015.
Yeah, and to be blunt, he crashed a lot early on.
Max Verstappen. Crash
but,
Verstappen.
You know, to his credit, he learned from those experiences.
He's really good at crashing now.
Well, he's really good at recovering the car, nursing it back to the pits and getting points. Whereas, I mean, Norris has actually admitted he's got to work on a few things. He messed up, I think, the first corner, or he messed up on the first lap in this race.
Yeah, which he has done a lot.
Yeah, I mean, he's really good at taking a good qualifying and throwing it away, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, all 5 of his pole positions, he's actually lost the lead before the first corner.
Yeah.
Which is not great.
I mean, it's not great in some ways, but it also gives him a target.
Yeah.
You know, he can work with a sports psychologist, he can go back over the videos, he can change.
I think there was also a mechanical glitch in the McLaren's shifting that prevents it from going into second. So that second phase of like pulling away is affected. It's only like, I think it's just a delay of like a few tenths of a second.
Well,
obviously, in F1, that's going to cost you the lead.
Well, from not only in F1,
start,
but from the start line to the first corner, a few tenths is disastrous.
Yeah, exactly. That's why we see. Maybe it's not enough for him to lose the lead, but then he takes extra risks and he's kind of overcompensating. Maybe.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I mean, there's things they can work on, but at the moment, you know, neither actually, looking at your lovely spreadsheet, neither Max nor Perez have actually been having very good races recently. I know we keep saying, oh, Perez is having a really bad...
I mean, yeah, this run of 5th, a 2nd, a 5th and a 4th from Verstappen, compared to last season, which is just like ones all across the board, is pretty bad.
Yeah.
I think it's his worst run of form since 2021, actually.
And bizarrely, this is, at the same time, Lewis Hamilton's best run of form. So
yeah, I mean...
Probably in the new era of, like...
Well, I mean, it's the first time he won a race since Qatar 2021, so yes, it is, automatically.
But, like, having two... Yeah.
2 wins in 3 races. Outscoring Verstappen in every race.
Oh, what really annoys me in my Facebook is, like, trying to be like TikTok and showing me F1 stuff. And whoever's got a particular axe to grind says... Oh my God, look at the points scored in the last 3 races or 4 races or 6 races, depending on, you know, who they're particularly favouring.
Yeah, you can pick any range of races and somebody will have scored more points than somebody else.
Yeah, and I'm kind of like, let's look at the last 14 races, because that's actually...
Yeah, you can't forget Verstappen did win a lot in the first 10 races, actually. Like, in the first 10 races, there were only 3 non-Verstappen wins.
Yeah.
It's just that since then he hasn't won any more. Which is why there's more than 10 races. There's actually about 10 races left.
There's 10 to go, yeah.
Yeah, so it could be overturned in a way. If one team can jump up to second convincingly, or even first.
The only way I think it can be overturned, looking at the gaps, Norris would have to pretty much... Norris has got to start winning a lot of races.
Yeah.
Because he's 78 behind with 10 races. So his obvious approach there is to win and fastest lap, and then there's nothing Max Verstappen can do. He will lose 8 points per race, which will give him...
That's the tiniest of margins.
But if Max is coming in 4th and 5th and he's winning...
He's got a bit more margin, yeah.
He can start to kind of tip the scales, but...
But he's not winning.
No, and whenever he doesn't win, he finishes behind Max. And actually, if you look at that graph you've got, what you can see is Max is opening up the gap and pulling away. And everybody else behind him
just
is
kind of
squeezing
up together.
Because, you know, Mercedes have won 3 races now.
Yeah.
McLaren have won 2 with 2 different drivers. Both Ferraris have won.
Yeah, I mean, it's not... Nobody's kind of mounting an actual challenge. They're all just kind of closing up to the back.
How many wins has Max had? I thought you had 9.
I discounted the sprints.
Oh, yeah, okay. I didn't realise you got sprints on there as well.
4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, plus 3 sprint wins.
So if you go down to that team chart,
Yarp.
Max has won 7.
Yeah. Piastri and Norris have won 1 each.
And the other 3 teams have won 7.
Collectively, yes.
So if we were in a 2021 situation where it was Max versus another driver...
Like a Norris or a Piastri.
Or a Hamilton, as it was.
Yeah.
Then it would have been 7 races apiece, and it would have been neck and neck.
Yeah, they won 10 and 8.
Yeah.
And it was like... They were trading wins all season. It was...
How many years have you done that for?
2021. And then this is the first one. I think this might be just... Yeah.
Data.
I actually did... I remember sitting there putting in the result of the final race and thinking, I'm going to have to, like, have integrity and, like, put in Max Verstappen 1, kind of annoyed.
Yeah. You know this whole, like, Felipe Massa suing the FIA?
Yes.
I realised something. Because everybody always says, oh yeah, but if Felipe Massa gets 2008, then Lewis gets Abu Dhabi and gets to 2021 and he's still on 7.
Yeah.
But it was different because the rules were applied correctly in Singapore 08. And it wasn't that it disadvantaged Massa, it was that his team made a mistake.
Yeah.
He left with the fuel pipe attached.
He only pitted because of the safety car.
But there's no way of turning back time and saying...
If he had pitted at the right time...
Well, there's every chance his team could have still made the mistake.
Yeah.
Whereas...
So Massa's saying that Singapore 08 should have been struck from the record because it was a cheated win by Alonso.
Which would have made him win.
Yeah. But then, Hamilton could say, well, more cars should have got out of my way in Brazil and not just Glock, and I should have won that race. It's,
Well, I mean...
It's quite dangerous to go down the land of kind of ifs, ands and buts.
Yeah. But, I mean, you could say, if Massey had followed the rules in Abu Dhabi 21, the race would have finished under the safety car and Hamilton would be world champion.
Yeah, it's a bit more unequivocal.
That's more cut and dry, but...
Because it's you can tell what would have happened.
I think the most that Massa could hope for is that Alonso would be disqualified from that win in 2008 because it was unfair.
Yeah.
Which then he also DNF'd, so it wouldn't actually make any difference.
Yeah, it might give Hamilton a few more points, which would make him more the champion.
Yeah, it's weird.
I think at this point they're going to kind of say, like, what happened, what the call was then is final, and it's just history now.
Otherwise it would just be chaos.
Otherwise, everybody would be turning up and saying, like, oh, but this shouldn't have happened to me in 1993, so I should be champion.
Oh, what's that expression? If my grandmother had wheels, she'd be a bus or something.
A bike, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a meme of, like, a cooking show. Where they're talking about pasta, and this Italian guy, like one of them said, if you added ham to it, it would be more like this thing. And the Italian guy, who's obviously being very Italian about pasta, was like, well, if my grandmother had wheels, she'd be a bike. So what does it matter? Yeah. What are you talking about?
Go back to the Belgian thing, I think...
Yes.
No, I think we've kind of covered everything, haven't we? Bottas has put up a Instagram
let's talk about
post
the driver market for a bit.
With him driving Audi R8 with the number 77 on the side.
Yes.
Which, he hasn't yet extended his Kick Sauber contract before it becomes Audi in 26.
Yeah.
But I can't see why they wouldn't keep him, to be honest.
Yeah.
So
he's pretty,
Bottas and Hülkenberg.
Unless they want to get a young, experienced driver in to kind of spearhead once Hülkenberg calls it quits, because he's getting on a bit.
How old is he? Because I kind of remember him being around at the similar time to...
It's 2010 he made his debut, I think, and was quite impressive. He's 36.
Yeah, I remember him being talked about almost like the next Hamilton.
Well, he was 2009 GP2 champion and won Formula 3. 6 drivers won GP2 or Formula 2 in the debut season. I think I could name them. Him, Rosberg and Hamilton, Leclerc, Russell, Piastri.
So he
goes to show you how good Piastri is, actually.
But I think he was at the wrong time for the regulations because he's 6'1" and quite heavily built. Yeah.
You do have to wonder if he was 5'3", how good he'd be.
Well, quite. Maybe not 5'3", but...
Well, 5. I think the average height is 5'7" in the grid. I mean, Russell and Ocon are also quite tall.
Yeah, but you see Russell, he's lanky.
Yeah, he's quite skinny.
I mean, I must admit, to go off on a slight tangent, Freddie Flintoff from Top Gear and Cricket has been back on the screen after that accident.
Yeah.
And it really made me think, because he actually did a programme about bulimia. Because when he first showed up in Cricket, all the tabloids were like Fatty Flintoff.
Yeah.
And he actually had an eating disorder for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Because he was too fat to... I mean, he's a brilliant cricketer.
Yeah, obviously.
He captained the England team. He was an all-rounder. He was really good. But because that kind of bullying from the tabloids, and then you kind of look at the Formula One market and...
Yeah.
You're he was just too heavy and...
It's worse because there was a minimum weight limit was introduced. But I think it's 60. What used to be like 63 kilos, which is that you couldn't be an F1 driver if you were lighter than that. But in order to get the best performance, all the drivers would try and get down to that, and they could add more weight to the plank and lower the centre of gravity. Yeah, and recently they've upped it again. I think it might be up into the 70s now, and I think Bottas talked about having a borderline eating disorder from it, and how it actually is pretty rough if you're like got a slightly different metabolism. It just is like mental kind of torture.
Yeah, and it's what actually happens is there's an overall weight for driver and car, which actually ties back to Belgium. That's why Russell got disqualified.
Yeah.
And it might have been because it was a long, difficult race and you were sweating too much. But
yeah,
if you have a naturally small and light driver, like say Charles Leclerc isn't a big guy.
No, Alonso's quite small as well.
Then the overall weight, you have to add weights to the car.
Actually, Charles Leclerc's 1.8. That's slightly taller than me.
Oh, it's about that's me and you. But yeah, you can add weights to the car, but then you can add lead weights in the floor, which lowers the centre of gravity.
Yeah, Alonso's 1.71. That's shorter than me.
Yeah.
It's about the average, I think.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that kind of sunk Hulkenberg's career. I mean, he's won Le Mans for a start, so he's not a bad driver.
No, he's just kind of never quite been in the right car at the right time to get even a podium, let alone anything else.
Yeah. And I mean, Audi have been... Is it Audi have nicked Wheatley from Red Bull?
I think so, but I thought Audi said that he's not going to be the team principal, so he's kind of...
Yeah, I think he's going to be very high up in the management tree.
Yeah.
There's been quite a lot of moving around of not just drivers, but personnel.
Yeah, actual Wikipedia does say that... Wikipedia says that it will be Jonathan Wheatley as the CEO or the team principal of Audi F1 team.
Yeah.
They're starting 2026, I think. So I think there might be one more year of Kick Sauber. Stake F1 team Kick Sauber.
Yeah. Yeah, nobody still knows where Adrian Newey is going. Although pretty much every rumour mill is now saying Aston Martin.
Yeah. Which would tie into, that's what Lawrence Stroll does. He gets high-end people in.
Oh, I can't remember. Which driver were Aston Martin trying to poach?
Oh, God.
So I remember seeing even a rumour that Lawrence Stroll is so fixated on Aston Martin winning a Formula One World Championship that he'd put Lance out into World Endurance cars.
I think that's kind of the right move, unfortunately.
Yeah. I can't remember. I mean, everybody's talking about Verstappen, whether he'll get fed up with Red Bull or not.
It's looking less likely now. I think on this main F1 site, I saw... Yeah, Verstappen dubs Red Bull his second family as he picks his standout moments with the team. He's kind of put a specific... And
I mean, to be honest, no matter what the regulation changes bring, he's liable to have 5 world titles by the look of it. I mean, next year might be a bit harder fought.
So this will be his 4th this year.
Yeah.
I think next year's not guaranteed by any means, especially if Newey's not there.
Yeah.
I think it could actually be an 8-way title fight, to be maybe 7-way if Perez is still there.
Yeah. Although, yeah, somebody said that the FIA are pressuring Red Bull to keep Perez. And I wondered, would Red Bull give up a constructors' title to get more wind tunnel time for the new regs?
Well, there's that. And they might think that the money Perez brings in from T-shirt sales or like Mexican Grand Prix ticket sales or something is going to be more than they would get from a P1 versus a P2 in the constructors.
Yeah. But there's budget caps as well. I don't know quite how it all...
Yeah. I mean... But it is also a bit scary if the governing body can start putting pressure on the teams to keep certain drivers.
Particularly believe it, to be honest.
I haven't seen much hard evidence for that, but
because I mean the whole reason for having a Formula One team is trophies.
Yeah.
And although it's a bit like you see all the press, it's like, oh my god, who's going to be world champion? Red Bull will be counting how many constructors champions they've got, and they're probably getting fairly close to challenging Mercedes now.
They had 4. Did they win 2021 constructors?
No, I think that went to...
I wasn't counting it at the time.
That went to Mercedes.
Oh, yeah. Just about. By 29 points. That was a hell of a season.
Yeah.
Because Bottas was slightly better than Perez over the season.
Yeah.
That I remember.
And you see, I think that
that's what it
actually
came down
matters.
to.
I know there's, technical reasons for the wind tunnel time and everything, but I think, they want the pride of...
Yeah, they're not going to throw to get more wind tunnel time. That could be what Sauber are doing, though. They could be kind of like, there's no point developing the car now. We'll wait till we've got a bit more funding from Audi, 200% wind tunnel time or whatever, and go as hard as we can once we're Audi.
Oh, and get the new regs.
And then in 2026, they might even be prepping for the new regs now. Attack the new regs.
Oh, yeah. More not gossip this time, actual facts.
Yarp.
The FIA have changed the rules, and teams can now run 2026 mule cars.
Yes.
So they can start, they've got a limited amount of days, but they can take out cars with 2026 engines and maybe some 2026 aero elements.
Yeah, I think so.
Also, even more geeky than that, they've changed the regs in that, in theory, teams can choose their wheel supplier.
Wheel?
Yeah.
Not tyre?
No.
Oh.
Up to now, all wheels are supplied by BBS, which is a lovely company, says the geeky car modifying person.
Never even heard of them, but okay.
BBS wheels, they're brilliant. Anyway.
I don't know.
But now, I can't remember the other names, but like 5 or 6 companies have got the patent to make Formula One wheels.
Okay, interesting.
But it sounds like nobody's going to take them up on it because BBS have been working exclusively with Pirelli for years.
Well, since Pirelli got into F1, probably like 2010, 2010, I think.
So their knowledge, this is the sound of me looking it up on my phone. Maybe Toby will have to talk for a minute. So yeah, BBS's level of knowledge to work with the tyres is way higher than anybody else.
Yeah. I kind of wish there were alternate tyre providers, to be honest. I'm as much as Indianapolis 2005 was an absolute mess, it was also quite fun.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, taken for granted maybe.
No, I'm not going to download a PDF of the 2024 Formula 1 sporting regs. Where is it?
I feel like I really ought to have those, actually.
Here we go. planetf1.com. Something light and frothy.
Yeah, except
a standardised part in recent years, F1 teams in 2026 were given the freedom to sign their own wheel rim suppliers in a reversion of a rule introduced in 2022.
Yeah, BBS exclusivity to end.
Yeah, when they switched to 18-inch wheels, they were all BBS.
Oh, I see. Yeah. But now they've opened it up.
Several other... A request has been made by several F1 teams in order to select their own rim suppliers, with the FIA carefully evaluating the possibility of the prescribed parts posing a performance differentiator. Well, that's the whole point of choosing different parts.
Yeah.
But having weighed it up, the wheel rims are not expected to result in terms of making efforts to develop wheel rims in conjunction with their suppliers.
Yeah.
Here we go. Examples from the past include Enkai, Oz Racing, and Aptec. I've heard of Oz Racing as well.
Yeah.
I think that's probably a bit too technical anyway.
It's getting a little bit too technical. I mean, like, the Red Bull advantage with the T-junction thing is actually quite interesting to me.
Yeah, I've not heard of that.
And I'm quite happy that I can actually understand how it works as well, with like the pressure and the Gs and stuff. It's quite an interesting
Anyway,
design.
Before we go down a complete rabbit hole, how's the time looking?
About 50 minutes.
Oh, that'll do, I think.
Yeah. Did we talk... When did Behrman get signed for Haas, by the way?
I think we talked about that last time.
I thought it was... Was it before Belgium?
I don't remember. Anyway, we're looking forward to Holland. Traditionally a very strong...
The Netherlands.
Sorry, I old.
I think even Verstappen calls it Holland, to be honest, so I don't really know.
Okay, the Netherlands, the Zandvoort. Oh, no, scroll up a minute.
I think Zandvoort...
The Formula 1 Heineken Dutch Grand Prix 2024. That's what we're looking forward to.
I feel like Zandvoort's in Holland anyway.
What, the Holland part of the Netherlands?
Yeah. He's in a
traditionally a very strong race for Max, and obviously another home race because his mother's Belgian.
It's in North Holland, so you were right.
Okay.
Yes.
Very strong, lots of Orange fans.
It's
he's
his home
as much
race.
Belgian as he is Dutch, so there'll be a lot of fans there as there have been 2-3 weeks ago.
And in Austria.
Yeah, he's got a lot of home races.
Yeah. Apparently Piastri's claiming all his home races as well, because he's like got a tiny bit of Chinese blood. So he was like, yeah, this is my 1/16th home race now.
Oh, wow.
But yeah.
There's a lot of kind of banter goes on with Piastri and Norris and Leclerc on Twitter, actually.
Yeah, it's quite funny, Piastri.
Yes. And like people are adopting him and his parents.
He wants it anyway, Monaco Grand Prix.
Yeah, if you ever get bored, have a look at that on X.
Yeah, Twitter.
Yeah.
Yes, so...
Okay, we will be back in probably about 10 days, 2 weeks.
When actually what?
It's Friday now when we're recording this, and it's next weekend.
Ooh, nice. It'll be race week in like 2 days.
Yeah.
Finally.
Yeah.
I think, however, if you look at the schedule,
yeah,
there's another month-long break. So we're here. Yeah, Singapore, 20th of September. Then this is Vegas? No, is that COTA? Yeah, that's COTA. Circuit of the Americas, Texas Grand Prix.
Oh, there's another break.
And that's 20th. But then look, they go US, fine. Mexico, Brazil, Vegas, great. And then they go straight to Qatar in like 6 days.
And then Abu Dhabi.
And then straight to Abu Dhabi in like another 6 days.
Yeah,
like,
we said this on the podcast before. They are, in the course of some race contracts that go out over 8 or 10 years, trying to make it make more sense with less travelling.
I think, personally,
yeah,
there are too many obscure European races. Like, we don't really... Do we need 2 Italian Grand Prix? And a Hungarian Grand Prix? And an Azerbaijan? I know that's a bit more Middle Eastern.
I'd like Azerbaijan.
Actually, no, Baku is a good track. But then there's also, like, Jeddah and Qatar, which are kind of rubbish, to be honest.
Yeah, but you started off saying there were too many European ones.
Yeah, I'm saying there's also too many Middle Eastern ones because of the money.
Yeah, I mean, they could go out to India, Korea,
Malaysia. Sepang is a great track.
There's none on Africa at all.
They are talking, I think, one of the African countries, I don't know which one, is talking about an African Grand Prix, and I think it should.
Certainly South Africa's had the race before.
Yeah. Zolder, I think it was. Which is always good. But I think, yeah, if I was in charge of the calendar, it would look a bit different.
And also, like, grouping them so you had, like, a European season, which is, I know what they're trying to do.
Because now we've got to the point where we're having 2 month-long breaks, you might as well have, like, triple headers break, triple header in Europe, 2-3 weeks, cluster in the Middle East, 2-3 weeks, Americas, 2-3 weeks, Asia.
And maybe Australia.
Yeah. Well, Australia is kind of a nightmare to get to from anywhere, really.
Well, it's better for me. Anyway.
It's very difficult.
Let's try and wrap this up and stop talking about Formula 1.
Oh. Yeah.
Thank you for listening. Mm-hmm. As always, I'm Graham H. Miller, if you want to read mystery books. He's official Toby.
Yeah.
Actually, most of our listeners come from YouTube anyway, so...
Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
You know how to find him.
Subscribe.
And we'll be back in about 10 days with all the news from Zandvoort. And probably more driver news. Maybe Mercedes might have finally made up their mind.
Rumour is that they're going to announce Antonelli at Italy because he's Italian.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Anyway.
So that'll be about a month. Yeah.
Okay, then. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.